building while Saban weighs in from home. And if he's following CDC guidelines, which I imagine he will have to do that for 10 days.
So to make it 100% clear, and Nick, if you are watching, get well soon, but in the event that he is working on the game, to make it 100% clear, Heather, is there any chance he winds up on the sideline on Saturday?
No, not if he's following CDC guidelines, because again, it requires, and the SEC requires a 10-day isolation at home. Now, the other thing is that there is a rule in the NCAA football rules that was provided to ESPN.com yesterday from the SEC office saying that the coaches cannot have communication unless you are in the press box to the field. So by rule, Saban is not allowed to call into the game on Saturday. He's not allowed to Zoom in on Saturday. And that rule goes into effect 90 minutes before the start of the game when the officials take control of the game until the end of the game when they blow the whistle and the score is final. So his communication is limited to practice this week, not in game.
And again, it's the biggest game of the year, 2 against 3 against their arch rival and his former assistant, Kirby Smart. Paul Finebaum, I come to you. No one talks to more people in the SEC and more people who care about the SEC than you do. What reaction were you hearing on your show yesterday?
Shock, Greeny. When the story broke about 5:45 Eastern time, everything in the South, and it really in college football, just came to a screeching halt. We've heard many coaches, 6 or 7 already, get COVID, players by the bushel. But when Nick Saban got it, it really sent a pall over the sport. And it's so interesting to see what is going to happen next. He said very clearly yesterday that he'll take another PCR test today and tomorrow. And you know, I don't know what happens if it turns out to be a false positive 2 days in a row. Heather was correct. CDC guidelines do prevail, but I've covered the SEC for nearly 40 years, and what coaches want to do down here trump anything else, including the CDC. I'm not suggesting Nick Saban is going to be at the game, although his family has a box, but this is the biggest game of the year, and crazier things have happened.
Okay, yeah, that was sort of what I was hinting at when I was asking that to the first place. So, David Pollack, let me come to you. Let's just assume that Nick Saban is not there. He is not physically present, and as Heather said, can't have practically any interaction with the team on game day. What impact do you think that has on this game against Georgia?
Well, Saban's not a caretaker. Like, he's not a guy that's just the rah-rah guy and doesn't have his hands in on everything. Everything runs through Nick, like everything. And talking to, I talked to a coach who was at Alabama, that one of the things that was surprising, the coin toss is directed by him. Which way they're going to kick, warm-ups, like everything that goes on, injured players, everything goes through Nick Saban. So this will definitely be different. And I think just from a presence standpoint, how many times have we seen Nick chew guys out on the sidelines, chew coaches out on the sidelines, and bring energy and not take certain things? And the guys are you're always looking over like, oh God, like Dad's mad at me. Like, I got to make sure I step up my game. So I think this is huge, man. There are some coaches that it wouldn't be as big of a deal. This is an enormous deal for Alabama and the Crimson Tide.
Quickly, Heather, someone asked me this question, and it's a good one. Should Alabama lose this game in a close game, what consideration would the College Football Playoff Committee give to the fact that they played it without their head coach?
It would absolutely be considered, just like during a, quote, normal season when they take into consideration star players that aren't on the roster. But you have to remember who comprises the selection committee, because their perspectives matter. Florida Athletic Director Scott Strickland is on the committee, so he can bring the perspective of an administrator who currently has everything paused because of 21 positives at Florida. Then you have former players like Penn State's John Urschel and a coach like R.C. Slocum who could bring the perspective of what it's like to play and go through a game without a head coach. All of those perspectives at the table will matter, but they will also pay attention to the game. Is Alabama's defense any better, with or without Nick Saban? It's one piece of the puzzle, but will certainly be considered.
Quickly, for both of you guys, Paul, what should they take into account with Saban not there?
Well, I think it will be a factor, but here's the thing to keep in mind, Greeny. If Alabama loses this game and then wins out, let's say they meet Georgia again in the SEC title game, then I think Saban's absence will be moot. Alabama will still be in the playoffs. So as important as this game is, it's not the last game of the season or next to the last game where it could really impact. I think there's just way too much time and unpredictability for this one event to have a significant impact on the college football playoff.
But another, like David, which is a bigger deal? Super quickly, not having your coach or not having your quarterback, per se? Which would be more considerable if you are someone making that kind of decision?
Well, I'd rather not have Nick Saban than not have Trevor Lawrence, if you're going that route. But listen, I want to say every game matters, Greeny, because it's supposed to. This game really with Georgia, as long as it's close, both these teams it changed nothing about either one of these teams' seasons. Both of them still very much in the mix, can win in December in the SEC championship game, and still go to the playoffs easily.
Okay, guys, outstanding. Thank you. Please stay close by. Any further developments in this, Heather will have them, and I'll come back to you guys as we continue. Meanwhile, the big story from the NFL is the continued waiting game surrounding free agent Le'Veon Bell. The Jets released